I don't have to go to him and say, I forgive you. I ask God, my Father, to forgive him.
You can come again and do the same thing and I'll forgive. If that happens, then a person will be completely battered.
What we mean when we say honest conversations. It could be some facts there, but more than facts, the feelings need to be expressed.
Welcome, Mr. Vijay. Welcome, Mrs. Jessie. It's great to have you on the show. When we talk about forgiveness, nowadays forgiveness is a very important thing when you talk about the entire family aspect. So now, how can unresolved anger, open the doors to deeper conflict that is present in families, that are present in relationships, stuff like that?
Yeah. In fact, anger has become such a major factor for conflicts in any types of relationships.
Right.
That it is becoming harder and harder unless we have certain yardsticks and certain principles which are commonly followed by everyone in the relationship.
Right.
Things are not going to be resolved soon. In fact, the Bible says in Proverbs chapter 15 and verse 1, a harsh word stirs up anger.
Right.
That's where it all begins. A harsh word, a word which is spoken without even thinking what the other person will feel like.
Right.
And that, is the beginning of a series of actions that takes place in the mind as well as through the emotions,
Right.
which will end up, in major conflicts. And so a word which is not spoken at the right time leads to hurt.
Right.
And then when the hurts, are harbored in the heart, it leads to anger.
Right.
And then anger, when it is not resolved, it takes us to resentment.
Right.
And that is the end, of a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that poisons the whole aspect of our being, the
Right.
personality.
Right.
Bitterness comes in, unforgiveness, and then, it will be no end. I mean, there's no way beyond that.
Right.
Unless it is resolved in a proper way.
Right.
So I think the Bible has a lot to say about that, and we need to, keep those aspects in mind if we have to have proper relations, within ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Jesus teaches us forgiveness in the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 14 to 15. Now, how should this shape a Christian way of forgiving when we talk about a Christian family?
That's a very profound question because it's, Jesus makes sure that we forgive.
Right.
Because he's forgiven us.
Right.
Right. In fact, it is not optional for us.
Right.
Okay. It is central to our faith. That's what
Right.
I would like to say here.
Right.
Because God has forgiven us in Christ. We have received forgiveness.
Right.
We have received mercy from God.
Right.
So God expects us to forgive and to extend that same mercy to those who offend us.
Right.
And he has just not said those words plainly.
Right.
In fact, he has demonstrated it, because Jesus demonstrated forgiveness and mercy on the cross itself.
Right.
So we are called, in fact, it's central to our faith, as I said, to forgive and to extend mercy. So that will shape how we, respond to people who offend us.
Right.
Okay, and forgiveness doesn't mean we have to pretend that there's no hurt at all.
Right.
There is hurt. So we need to acknowledge that. And also, forgiveness doesn't mean I go to the person who has offended me and say, I forgive you. Because the person may ask me. Now, for example, I go to Vijay and say, I forgive you.
Right.
Vijay will ask me, what did I do that you need to come and say, I forgive you?
Right.
I mean, that response itself shows that he's still not prepared to understand, the impact of the pain, impact of the words or the actions.
Right.
The pain that he has caused to me.
Right.
In the sense, he has not fully grasped that pain that he has inflicted on me.
Right.
So I come back more hurt.
Right.
So how do we forgive? Matthew, as we said, Matthew 6, 14, 15, Jesus shows us the way. So how do we forgive? In fact, the first words that Jesus uttered on the cross gives us the answer there. He says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing. He took his pain to his Father. He placed it in his Father's hands. And then he says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing.
Right.
That's exactly what he tells us to do. I don't have to go to him and say, I forgive you.
Right.
I give my pain to God there. And I ask God, my Father, to forgive him, show mercy to him, so that he will also realize what he has caused to me.
Right.
You know, that is a beautiful thing that Jesus has taught us here.
Right.
And also, I would like to add one more thing. You know, Peter comes to Jesus and he asks him, how many times to forgive? You know, and is it 7 times? Is what he says. But Jesus says 70 times 7. That's the path
Right.
Jesus shows us. That means every time the hurt comes to me, you know, to my mind, you know, I tend to rehearse it. But I choose the path of forgiveness.
Right.
You know, I say, Lord, help me forgive.
Right.
And I ask you to forgive. You know, keep repeating that within myself. That sets me free,
Right.
you know, when I choose to forgive.
Right.
So, and also, finally, Jesus, in fact, gives us one more thing, to love those who hurt us, right?
Right.
Not just to love. You know, there's a acronym I would like to add here, LGBT.
Okay.
Okay, love, do good, bless, and pray.
Right.
Okay, it's easy to remember as well. You know,
Right.
Jesus calls us to do that. That's
Right.
how we are shaped by the forgiveness that we receive from the Lord.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about forgiveness now, how can a person set boundaries when it comes to forgiveness? Especially like take it in family perspective, like a family member keeps hurting us continuously. I mean, that tends to happen in a lot of family
Yeah,
scenarios, right? So how do you set that boundary for forgiveness?
Yeah, right. In fact, when we think of forgiveness, we have to think about it in the context of boundaries also.
Right.
So it is not that, you know, when I forgive, I don't have any boundaries. You know, you can come again and do the same thing and I'll forgive.
Right.
That doesn't happen. In fact, if that happens, you know, then a person will be completely battered and he will be beyond reform and beyond reconciliation. And that is why even God has set, you know, boundaries for us, and he has given us the wisdom to handle this very important aspect of forgiveness.
Right.
So if we have to define these two words, forgiveness, you know, it is something that happens in the heart, and it's a decision to let go.
Right. Right.
Okay. When you forgive, you know, it is not easy.
Right.
And that is why many of us, we are not able to handle forgiveness, because we are letting go of the resentment. And we tell ourselves, you know, not to hold on to the bitterness or to seek revenge.
Right.
That is forgiveness. But what is boundaries when we think of that? You know, on the other hand, boundaries are practical and they are protective ways of holding on to this forgiveness which we have granted to others.
Right.
Okay, so forgiveness works within the framework of boundaries.
Right. Right.
And so both of these are necessary. And to help us more, you know, to understand better about these boundaries and how we exercise forgiveness, a few practical ways how to set boundaries. Okay, I would like to just share with you. Forgiveness doesn't mean, you know, tolerating harmful behavior.
Right. Right.
Okay, you are forgiving someone for the harmful behavior, and there is every chance that the same thing will recur again, will happen again.
Right.
Okay, so it doesn't mean that, you know, I'm going to tolerate. I have given, you know, point blank forgiveness to you and you can come again and I'll do it again. No.
Right.
Okay, so it is not tolerating, but it is calmly and respectfully telling or stating what you cannot accept and what you will do if it continues.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that there should be open and honest communication, you know, when forgiveness is being granted.
Right.
Okay, so the person who is forgiving should also say in a very polite and humble manner, saying that, you know, I was hurt because of what you did to me or what you said to me. And then I'm forgiving you, I'm letting it go. But then, you know, if you're going to do it again to me, you know, it is going to be difficult for me to handle it.
Right.
So both of the parties should agree to work within particular boundaries. And the person who is forgiving should set the limits of the tolerance that he or she has.
Right.
And so the other person also will become wise not to cross those boundaries.
Right.
The other thing that we can do is we need to take it one step at a time. For example, limiting certain conversations.
Right.
The words that have been spoken have hurt. So those words should be deleted from the vocabulary of the other person.
Right.
So we shouldn't give scope for speaking the same words again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we need to also decide about some of the topics that we talk.
Right.
Sometimes anger is, coming up because of the words that people say or because of the topics that people raise up. Maybe it is a topic of a person, who is outside the relationship, who has been a problematic person.
Right.
The moment the person takes the name of that person, the topic is raised, again, there is a flare up that happens.
Right. Anger builds up inside.
Builds up inside.
Right.
So when we talk about the boundaries, these are the things that have to be talked about. So we need to be open and tell, please don't, raise that topic again.
Right.
And the person knows what topic I am talking about.
Mhm.
Please don't raise the name of that person again.
Right.
So that is a boundary that we are putting. The third practical aspect is, if possible, involve a third person who can be trusted by both the parties. For example, a pastor or a
Right.
counselor
Right.
or a senior elder person of a family who is mature, who is godly, who is able to help the reconciliation and resolve the conflicts that can be there. So if that happens, then repeated such serious situations will not repeat again and
Right.
again.
And
So
it would be more better if the person is not biased in any way, right?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That would mean more of accountability.
Exactly.
There's
Yeah.
somebody, I'm giving a word here that I'm going to
That's a fun
restore
way,
the
yeah.
relationship.
Correct.
So there's an
Yeah. So to just sum up, forgiveness frees the heart,
Right.
and the boundaries protect this heart which has been freed.
Right.
So without boundaries, if a free heart is there, then it will be open to attack once again. And the boundaries protect the heart which has been freed, with forgiveness.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what role does, open, honest conversations and, of course, apologies play when you're talking about reconciliation? And when does an apology feel, more genuine and it's not really forced on a person?
That's right. Yeah, in fact, Matthew chapter 5, verses 23 to 24.
Right.
There Jesus says, I'll just rephrase it in my own words. If you are here in the sanctuary with your offering,
Right.
and there you remember that your brother has something there at home against you.
Right.
You leave your offering here, go there. First, see how that can be restored, and then come back and give your offering.
Right.
Is what Jesus says.
Right.
So, what it implies is reconciliation, matters to God a lot.
Right.
And it has to be done at the earliest, is what Jesus is implying here.
Right.
So, but what you asked in your question, it has two words. One, honest conversations, and the other side is genuine apology.
Right.
So, let's begin with honest conversations. How it helps in, restoring the relationship or reconciliation.
Right.
Okay, here to begin with, the hurts that have been experienced must be expressed honestly in the honest conversations.
Right. Right.
Now, it should not be exaggerated either. For example, I felt sad when you said such things.
Right.
Okay, I felt humiliated. I felt betrayed. So my feelings, my honest feelings, I have to express.
Right.
Okay, that is, what we mean when we say honest conversations. How I feel. It could be some facts there, but more than facts, the feelings need to be expressed.
Right.
That conveys a message to the offender, if I can call,
Right.
the one who has hurt me.
Right.
Okay, that conveys a message that the hurt caused is something deeper.
Right.
Okay, that will sink into the person. And also, honest conversations, when I say it creates a space there,
Right.
okay, for healing.
Right.
Accusation will not. Okay, accusation. Like, when we speak harshly, as he was saying, and though there is truth in what we are speaking, we have to speak the truth in love, is what Ephesians 4:15 says. But when we start with an accusation, like you always do this to me, okay, that always is an absolute word.
Right.
And when I say always, it need not be always. It could have happened a one-time thing also.
Right. Right.
These blanket statements accusing somebody, that has to be refrained or restricted. We need to speak the truth in love. And that creates an atmosphere or a climate for healing.
Right.
Now we come to the second word in the question that you asked. How do we know this is a genuine apology? Let me tell you, we had a dog, okay, and he was a Pomeranian.
Right.
And he used to do so many wrong things sometimes, loving, very loving dog. But at the times he used to do something wrong. And we
Right.
used to ask him, his name was Chintu. So, Chintu, say sorry. Immediately he would put his paw on our hand and say sorry. But
Oh,
as
wow.
soon as he takes his hand, all his teeth we could see again, his anger come out. That's not a genuine apology there.
Right.
I mean, I'm taking an example of the dog, okay? But we do the same here. So,
Right.
how do we discern it's a genuine apology? I would say this statement and listen carefully, okay?
Right.
Real understanding of the damage done, coupled with godly sorrow and the desire, genuine desire to make things right, it precedes genuine apology.
Right.
Okay, I'll break it up. Okay, here the understanding of the damage I've caused, coupled with the godly sorrow, not a sorrow that I'm exposed now, so let me say sorry.
Right.
No, it's godly sorrow. I've done something wrong here to the person and to God.
Right.
Okay, that is godly sorrow. And a genuine desire, to make restitution. It should precede a genuine apology.
Right.
So how do we know that the apology it comes from a sincere heart? First is the genuine apology owns the hurt.
Right.
Okay, hurt caused. For example, I was wrong when I said such things to you. It should not be that I said such things because you were saying something. No,
Right.
it owns the responsibility that I have caused the damage there. And secondly, genuine apology expresses remorse at the impact of the actions or the words.
Right.
I'm sorry that you felt sad. I'm sorry that you felt humiliated, as I was telling
Right,
earlier.
right.
No? Yeah. Genuine remorse, about what has been done.
Right.
And thirdly, a genuine apology asks for forgiveness. It says, would you please forgive me? When we say, would you please forgive me, we put the person who has been hurt, to process the whole thing and extend the forgiveness.
Right.
Okay, it's not that I force the person to forgive me. Would you please forgive me? And I wait for the forgiveness to be granted by the person there.
Right.
So I take a step down here. And lastly, a genuine apology expresses willingness to change.
Right.
Okay, and it shows in action. Now we have the example of Zacchaeus there. Okay, he says, if I have cheated anyone, I will, give back 4 times.
Right.
There is a willingness to make a transformation. So that these things show that the apology is genuine.
Right.
Yeah, I hope this helps.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Also, like when a person is giving a genuine apology, they want to change what hurt another person, right? So, what advice would you give to those people who really want to change but are not able to? They still repeat the same thing again.
Yeah, that's a good question here. Of course, it's a process.
Right.
It doesn't mean that I say sorry and I change overnight. No. So the person who has been offended also needs to give time
Right.
and observe, how the transformation happens.
Right.
Okay. And if there are steps taken towards transformation, acknowledge it, appreciate it,
Right.
and encourage the transformation. Okay. It's not that, let me just wait and see. Not that kind of attitude from the person who's been hurt.
Right.
Okay, if you genuinely see a transformation, acknowledge it and appreciate it. But if it repeats again, as he was saying, draw the boundaries then.
Right.
Draw the boundaries. Even Jesus did that. He did love people, he did forgive, but then he had his own boundaries. He retreated from that place.
Right.
We need to understand the boundaries.
Right. Now, from a life's perspective and also from a biblical perspective, now what does that teach us about healing? And I'm not talking about just in terms of a relationship, but also individuals themselves.
Yeah. I will answer this?
Yes, go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. Okay. You asked from 2 perspectives. One is
Right.
from the biblical, the other is the life
From the life, yeah.
perspective, right? from biblical perspective, let's begin from there.
Sure.
Because that's our anchor.
Right.
Okay, when we choose restoration instead of anger, continued anger, and in obedience to God, okay, it's not compelled by somebody or forced or pressurized, under pressure.
Right.
It is in obedience to God. When we choose restoration, it opens a door there
Right.
for healing to begin.
Right.
Okay, and that needs a lot of grace, doesn't come on our own. We need to depend on God's grace there.
Right.
To choose restoration instead of continued resentment or anger. And also the other side is when we choose to reconcile through genuine repentance, because there are two people involved
Right.
in this process. One is the offender and the other one who is being offended.
Right.
So the offender, when he or she chooses to reconcile through genuine repentance, it makes space for healing to begin.
Right.
Okay, and I would like to give 3 Bible verses here. There are many, but 3 I want to highlight here from the biblical perspective. Galatians 6:9, it says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we don't give up."
Right.
So actually this shows that it takes time. Reconciliation takes time.
Right.
And perseverance is important there. So with faithful effort and patient effort, we will see the harvest there.
Right.
So that is what it means in Galatians 6:9 there. And also in Colossians 3:13, Christ gives a model there. He says, the verse says, "Bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you have a grievance against someone,"
Right.
okay, even if we have 101 reasons not to forgive, the Bible encourages us to choose forgiveness over there and restitution. Forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. There is a model given to us. Why we forgive? Because God has forgiven us.
Exactly.
And so that is something from the biblical perspective I would like to add. And lastly, when the confession from the person who has offended, confession is genuine, coupled with prayer, healing happens. James 5:16, it says, "Therefore confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed."
Right.
So confess genuinely that I have sinned, just like how the prodigal son said, "Father, forgive me." And in fact, he asked God as well, and I have sinned against you and heaven is
Right.
what he says.
Right.
And there was reconciliation. So this is from the biblical perspective. But when it comes to the life perspective, of course, psychology and many other things are
Right.
there. We cannot undermine all those things. We need to take those things also in perspective there. Deep healing comes first when we acknowledge honestly, as we were talking,
Right,
honestly,
right.
because there is grief associated. Acknowledge honestly what you have gone through. Secondly, responsibility is taken when needed. No self-defense, no blame shifting.
Right.
Own the responsibility completely. And thirdly, empathetic listening is important from both sides.
Right.
Okay, empathetic means we put ourselves in the shoes of the other person. Okay, empathetic listening is very important.
Right.
And that, helps us helps the healing there. Okay, the process of healing. And also gradual release of resentment. It's not that somebody says sorry and I release,
Right.
or I choose to release the resent. It's not just a quick thing, gradual release. It takes time there. And as he was sharing, healthy boundaries also is something that creates safety there
Right.
during the healing process.
Like it's very important.
Yes, yes. So with time and patience, definitely we can see a reconciliation happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, for families who want to go for couples counseling, and also the premarital thing, that is very important actually. So, would you tell people like how to get in touch with you guys?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, we are associated with an organization called Urban India Ministries.
Okay.
So, if we can give the contact details of that organization,
Sure.
then people can get in touch with us for comprehensive counseling,
Right.
beginning with premarital,
Right.
up to marriage and mental health and all the other.
Right.
In fact, we have a national helpline also, which
Right.
is open 6 days a week.
Okay.
Yeah, 9 to I think it's 24/7. It's
Yeah.
open.
Okay.
and it's available in almost 7 or 8 languages. Yeah, we have counselors like that. Yeah, so I think if to just give a few statistics, just last week we received more than 100 calls, for on the national helpline from all parts of India.
Right.
So we would encourage people and our viewers also to make the best use of these.
And we have a network of counselors, in fact, all over India. So if a person wants a personal counseling, we can connect with the counselor in that particular state as well. And as you were saying, about the premarital counseling you mentioned, okay, we have a curriculum with 10 lessons over there. Okay, yeah, for people who want the counseling before marriage, take them through the 10 lessons. Yeah, it's a beautiful one. And one of the lesson is for parents as well.
Right.
Okay, we call them also, because it's not just about the people who are getting married there, it's parents also.
Yeah, because two families are coming
Yes.
together,
Yeah,
right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you once again, Uncle Vijay, Auntie Jessie, for joining the show. It was indeed a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.